Hello, glad to see you on my channel. I really value it. And today I want to share with you a wonderful story. It's a dramatic story that will come as a total shock to everybody. It is a really amazing story. So enjoy watching it. The alarm clock rang mercilessly, breaking the morning silence of the sleepy apartment. The sun had already launched its long fingers of bright rays through the windows, which now and then strove to put a sunbeam directly into the eyes. This meant that it was time to get up, cook a simple breakfast, wake up my daughter for college, and go to work. Jacob Moore was known in his field as one of the best surgeons, but was forced to vegetate in an ordinary city hospital, of which there are 1,000 across the country, without prospects and promotion. For his numerous merits, awards for some reason were also received by the authorities and persons, and they moved up the career ladder. Yes, our and other sycophants, whom Jacob was not. He grew up in an intelligent family of teachers, where groveling and servility were considered a disgrace. Therefore, a modest, respectable doctor each time remained behind the benefits that more arrogant colleagues received. Even for many years of conscientious work, Jacob managed to get only a diploma when, as less qualified, but more left-wing comrades, they grabbed good bonuses and valuable gifts. So today, everyone went to the anniversary of the head physician, and Jacob remained on duty. All the same, you have 2 planned operations today, said the head of the surgical department. So be a friend, be on duty for me, and I'll bring you a bottle of red tomorrow. Do you drink it? Okay, I'll be on duty, Jacob answered wearily. I'll manage without a bottle. More recently, a bottle of wine would have been a valuable gift for Jacob, but not now. Although there was a time when a young and promising doctor went on a drinking binge, 10 years ago, Dr. Jacob Moore suffered grief. It happened in the evening, when he was in residency, and filled out the medical history of his patient, whom he successfully pulled out of the other world. Is this Dr. Jacob Moore? Asked a male voice on the phone. Yes, it's me. Who is asking? This is Police Lieutenant Rodriguez speaking. I regret to inform you that your wife, Mrs. Helen Moore, has died in an accident due to injuries incompatible with life. The elevator cable broke in the mall. I offer my condolences. Please come immediately to identify the body. Write down the address. With a trembling hand, Jacob wrote down the address. Now, more than ever, he thanked God for being able to insist that his 3rd grader daughter did not go shopping with her mother today, but stayed at home to do homework. Otherwise, 2 would have to be identified today. Where's Mom? Meg asked first. She was a smart girl, studied for 1.5. Mom is no more, Jacob answered his daughter quietly. She died. The girl was silent for a long time and then wept bitterly. Her father hugged her, but kept from crying. It was impossible to frighten the child even more. They spent a whole year in mourning. During this time, Jacob managed to sink to the bottom of the bottle. He poured his grief with rapture, and no one could pull him out of his unrestrained drunkenness. Neither Jacob's mother, who did not particularly love her son, but who had to take on the upbringing of her granddaughter, nor colleagues who lacked the golden hands of Jacob's golden hands, nor neighbors, nor friends. But, as always, His Majesty Chance intervened. He and Meg were sitting on the balcony. Jacob, as usual, discreetly drank vodka, and the girl ate cherries and talked on the phone with her grandmother. Suddenly, Jacob heard Meg wheezing and clutching her throat. Her daughter choked on a cherry pit. Jacob still remembers his daughter's huge, terrified eyes, and then the hops vanished as if by hand. He grabbed the girl and quickly, without hesitation for a single minute, carried out rescue manipulations with her. Jacob was only able to breathe when Meg was able to breathe. Dad, I almost died, the daughter cried when I felt bad. I thought about my mother. And also about you. Hearing such adult speech from a 10-year-old child was terrible for a loving father. I will not be alone, my dear. We will always be together, and I will not drink anymore. Forgive me for dumping you on Grandma. After all, you lost your mother too. And I was so selfish and weak. T, you're not weak, Dad. I understand everything. It's hard for you, and I love you very much. The daughter hugged Jacob. And I love you. Let's go fry pancakes. Remember you asked Dad? It was a year ago. And they both laughed. That evening, they cooked dinner together and watched some comedy on TV. Since then, Jacob hasn't drank. The fact that the young surgeon significantly spoiled his reputation with his drunkenness was very noticeable. He was not taken to good clinics. Even after 10 years have passed since the incident and the authorities did not offer senior positions, taking advantage of the fact that Jacob had nowhere to go and the brilliant surgeon was forced to work as a regular doctor. Meg turned 20 today. An ordinary doctor had no money for a magnificent banquet. Therefore, father and daughter decided to celebrate the anniversary together. And with the money saved, Meg planned to go with her friends to a cafe. Despite significant success and growth in skill, the surgeon Jacob Moore was not encouraged in any way, but only added work. In order to somehow make ends meet and pay for the studies of his daughter, he took more shifts, and serious patients, as if by agreement, entered his night shifts in batches. Their relatives, knowing about Jacob's talent, idolized him. And because everyone in the city knew who better to go to the reception, from the fact that Dr. Moore's office always had endless lines and sufferers, Jacob always treated each patient with care and awe. After all, they had nowhere else to go. All more or less experienced doctors have long fled to paid clinics. Prices were outrageous for ordinary people. He knew it. Yes, and he himself would be glad to leave for a well-paid job, but the trail of past mistakes made this impossible. No one wanted to take on a responsible job, a former alcoholic who was once registered with a narcologist. Little of Jacob had never been sent to any worthwhile refresher course in many years that could have given him the opportunity to move up the career ladder or get a better paying job. And now he had no money to buy his daughter the gold earrings she so dreamed of. Dad, don't worry about the present. Seeing his disappointment, Meg said, "New shoes are enough for me. The old ones are completely worn out. Look what a heel." The girl showed tattered heels on her boat. "Fine. Take a raincoat and move for shoes." On the way, they talked about school and work. Things were going well for Meg, but my father complained a lot. Can you imagine? Jacob was indignant. "In our department, all the equipment is old. They don't buy new ones." I asked the chief about 20 times, but he didn't give a damn. How to save patients, but in the restroom they bought a huge TV, bought upholstered furniture. Why do we have enough of the old? What is there to say? Tools and those antediluvian. It feels like a daughter that saves us. Nothing, Dad. I'll finish law school, go to work at the prosecutor's office, and investigate this case, the girl said. You finish first, my investigator. And Jacob hugged his daughter warmly. So sad that Mum is not with us, Meg suddenly said. If only she would arrange a holiday for us. I know for sure something big. The memory of their mother softened their hearts, and they went into the shoe store together. Meg chose inexpensive dress shoes with low heels, sparing her father's wallet. And Jacob, realizing this, was grateful to her. That evening, Meg was going to the nearest ice cream parlor, which was near the house. This establishment was loved by all the inhabitants of the area, since it had been operating since the days when Jacob was a boy. The prices here were democratic. The setting is bright and inviting. It was said that some rich man bought this place a long time ago because of nostalgia for his childhood that he spent in this area and often sat in this cafe when he was little almost every day. After the death of the owner, the cafe was inherited by his grandson. It became a family business. The young man's parents were major entrepreneurs and did not understand their son, considering this a whim of his grandfather, stupidity. But the guy flatly refused to sell the coffee of his beloved grandfather, who practically raised him while his parents, the boys, were making a career. And then 3 girls gathered at a table near the window and read the menu. Meg! Congratulations on your birthday, the girlfriends exclaimed loudly. We wish you to remain as kind and beautiful. And this is for you. And her friends handed her a small box. With a sinking heart, Meg opened the case. There lay her dream, small gold earrings with natural garnet. Elegant gold weaving framed the stone, like open-work petals hugging a drop of dew. Meg's eyes were wet. Girls, how did you know? And where did the money come from? Meg bombarded her friends with questions. And this instead of thanks. They laughed. Thank you very much. Meg hugged each of her friends. Work for joy and remember us. And don't worry about the cost. We earned part of the amount in practice and the other part was given by our parents, said one of the girls. I can't believe my eyes. How cool they look. Meg has already put on a gift and looked at himself in the mirror. Everyone was satisfied. The birthday girl is a gift, and her friends are the genuine joy that the girl experienced. Happy birthday. Please accept a compliment from the institution. A handsome guy put an ice cream cake on the table for his girlfriends. Thank you, Meg said politely. Do they give all the birthday people such luxurious cakes here? No, only those who like the owner of the cafe, answered the young man. Please tell him from me, thank you very much, Meg exclaimed joyfully. Okay, the guy smiled. When the cake was safely eaten, Meg wanted to treat her girls to the path with a chocolate cocktail. Drinks were served, and it turned out that someone had already paid for them. The waitress just smiled mysteriously and left. When the celebration ended, it was already dark outside. The girls started going home. Meg picked up her cloak and suddenly heard, "Allow me to help." The same guy who brought the cake helped her put on the raincoat. Girlfriends giggled, seeing how she was given signs of attention. And they did not find anything better than to say goodbye quickly and run away, calling a taxi for two. And Meg stayed with the guy who clearly showed interest in her. Can I take you out? He asked. Do you live far away? No, it's right here. Maybe we can get to know each other first, she asked. Otherwise, I don't go anywhere with strangers. My name is Ryan, the guy smiled back. I'm Margaret, but my dad and friends call me Meg. Beautiful name, Marussia smiled. She liked this young man. It was easy to communicate and did not cause hostility. As the young people were walking down the street, it started to rain. Ryan took off his windbreaker and lifted it up so that it covered the girl's head from the downpour. Meg liked the gesture. She was glad to have met such a guy today. Near the entrance, they said goodbye and agreed to meet again in a cafe. This time I will treat you, said Marussia. Okay, the guy replied. The girl was looking forward to the next evening. She couldn't wait to meet. When Meg entered the cafe, the employees greeted her, which surprised her very much. Ryan was already waiting for her at the table. He gave her a bouquet of red roses, for which the waitress brought a vase. So, you haven't forgotten that I'm treating you today? Of course not, the guy laughed. Now I'll pick up all the delicious things. Marussia didn't think about that. She was short on money. She was served a menu, looking at which the girl's eyes widened. In front of each dish was the price of 1 cent. What is this? Meg asked, surprised. Prices are, the guy replied calmly. Why are they all the same at 1 cent each? You'll know a lot. He soon grew old. Ryan smiled broadly. Thinking it was all a prank, the girl ordered cakes and cocktails. Then she asked for a bill. In the check in black and white there was a fee of 4 cents. Looking at Ryan, she made surprised eyes and then pinched her arm. Feeling the pain, Meg realized that she was not sleeping and loudly ouched, which made the young man laugh. You're so cute when you're surprised, he said. Well, I'm ordering something else delicious. I am hungry. And that's when Meg gave vent to appetite. They tried almost all the menu. When they were no longer strong enough, they finally left the table and went for a walk. I will remember this day for the rest of my life, Meg admitted. Me too, Ryan agreed. Mr. Gilmore, called Ryan, the waiter who ran after them. You forgot your phone in the office. So, you're the owner of the cafe. Why were there such prices? Meg wondered. Well, the conspiracy failed, Ryan smiled. They laughed for a long time and then told life stories to each other. And then the guy admitted that he liked Meg for a long time, and also that no girl has ever paid for it, except for her. Meg replied that no one surprised her like that, and honestly said that Ryan was also pretty to her. And at home, Jacob was preparing with might and main for the reunion of graduates, which he had completely forgotten about. The day before, classmates at the medical university called him and invited him to meet at a restaurant in the city center, to which the man happily agreed. Meg helped him match his tie and shirt to his old wedding suit. Jacob had no others. Yes, it didn't matter to him what he would wear to a meeting with friends of his youth. The main thing for him was to see everyone in good health. The restaurant is not a hospital canteen. Prices are sure to bite. It's a shame to spend that kind of money on food. Dad, nothing. Choose something cheaper and a glass of wine, his daughter encouraged. It will be interesting to look at all after 20 years. And Jacob, having cleaned his old but still solid shoes, left the house. I went to the restaurant in my old Opel, deciding that this way he would at least save on wine. On the way, I stopped by the greenhouse and bought 11 inexpensive white roses. That's how many fellow students should have been at the meeting. Near the restaurant were a decent car of medium and luxury class. When Jacob entered the hall, he saw that almost their entire student group had gathered. Only now in front of him were not 20-year-old guys, but adults, some of whom had changed beyond recognition. Jacob Moore, old man. A former dorm roommate was running to him. Andrew, how did you grow up? He became quite an adult. Oh, do you have something on the back of your head? Jacob hugged his comrade. Is it really a bald head? You were curly with us. My mother-in-law ate it to me, Andrew answered, and the comrades laughed. Jacob sat down at the table and took a good look at everyone. The once thin girls have become luxurious ladies. The boys have grown into big men. Some sat with solid bellies. There was also one guy who was unpleasant for Jacob, who studied poorly but went out thanks to bribes from his rich father. His name was Sebastian. However, everyone disliked him because of his arrogance as well as excessive stupidity. Hi all. Jacob greeted the company joyfully, and he distributed a rose to each of the women present, while the girls were delighted. Jacob, you are a gentleman as always. So glad. Thank you, the women thanked the man. Our Simba is in his repertoire, Sebastian declared loudly. He covered his begging with cheap flowers. Are you that rich? At least give me a chamomile, retorted Lala, who was the most beautiful girl on the course. And this natural beauty has been preserved in her now untouched by Botox and braces. The beauty would be silent. Sebastian chuckled. Have you seen his suit? That it was impossible for us to try and put on something decent. And what does he have instead of a car? Are you a bum from the garbage dump or a surgeon out whom there are legends? Look disgusting. Don't look, Jacob answered. I don't need Daddy's permission to spend the money from the card. If you think about it, you can't afford it, if not for his financial assistance. You, they say, do not work, but were only listed as the father's deputy. But I work in an elite clinic. Where are they all? And Sebastian gestured to those present at the large table. They dream of getting into. What's wrong? You say you didn't ask us. Everyone was silent. The evening was hopelessly spoiled, and therefore ended quickly. Jacob took his tipsy friends home and returned home. There was an unpleasant aftertaste in my heart. And at home, another surprise from the category of bad or even nasty was waiting. Meg roared uncontrollably. Jacob, frightened of what had happened, rushed to her right in dirty boots. "Why are you crying? Where does it hurt? Don't scare me," Jacob exclaimed. "They humiliated me," the girl squeezed out of herself. Who? Jacob couldn't understand what Meg was mumbling through her tears. He silently took Meg by the hand, took her to the car, and they arrived at the favorite place of her mother and his wife on the riverbank, where there was a wrought iron bench at the very edge of the cliff, from which magnificent landscapes opened. They sat down, covered themselves with a blanket, and Meg told everything. And it was like that. When she was walking with Ryan in the park, a dog ran up to them with a bow around his neck and his teeth. The dog was holding a box. "Take it, don't be afraid," Ryan said. The girl held out her hand, and the dog gave her a present. Inside was a golden ring with a transparent stone. Since Meg did not understand jewelry, she directly asked, "Is the ring expensive?" Without thinking twice, Ryan lied that he didn't. He also asked for her hand. Meg paused and stared at the boy. Silent means consent. "So we're getting married. Where else can I find such a fool?" Ryan laughed and kissed her. "Wow," she said, and fell silent again. "What's happened?" Confused. "Are you confused here? Came to you as a girlfriend, and then immediately the bride," said the girl. "Yes, and we meet quite a bit. And that was just a little bit enough for me to understand that you are my person, and I am your person," Ryan said, looking directly into Meg's eyes. I agree. "Well, let's go and meet my parents," said the guy, and took her by the hand. "Okay, but I have one question." "What?" "Where did this dog come from?" Not expecting such a simple question, the guy laughed for a long time. "This is Pee-wee, my friend's dog. He's very smart," Ryan added, "and a friend too." So, in a good, laughing mood, the couple walked home to Ryan. At this time, his parents were sitting in the living room and discussing where to invest the excess profits received from the sale of the new automatic installation that their factories were producing. The author of the brilliant idea was immediately fired so that he could not issue copyright for the idea. Therefore, the rich became the sole owners of the scientific breakthrough and simply paid such deals. Ryan's mother and father, or rather Ryan's stepfather, turned around more than once. They could only speak the language of power and money. That is why these monsters of business ate weak, intelligent simpletons for 2 times. It was to such barracudas that he led his tender bride, not suspecting anything. Even Ryan, whose upbringing, fortunately for him, was done by his grandfather, an intelligent and honest person. "Mom, Dad, are you home? I brought you someone." The parents went out into the hallway, hoping to see with him the girl who was predicted to be his companion. A rich girl and similar to themselves, but in front of them was just Meg, peering over their son's shoulder. "Please, love and respect. This is my fiancée," Ryan announced fervently, not expecting a storm of applause in return. "Hello," the guest said modestly and lowered her eyes. She was very shy. "Hello?" Coldly, her mother Ryan greeted her. "Come into the living room." The woman stubbornly did not want to call Meg by name, did not offer a cup of tea, and sent Ryan to the kitchen, allegedly to put the kettle on. His mother and stepfather began to cross. Examine the girl about her parents, their place of work, and her studies. Meg immediately felt out of place. Convinced that he was of no value to them, they ceased to be polite and removed their masks, becoming themselves. "So you want to play a wedding?" asked the stepfather. "I don't know. We didn't think about it." The girl answered quietly. "What were you thinking when you agreed to this adventure?" asked the mother. "I don't think Ryan's proposal is a gamble." "No. You are a real adventurer. I agreed to the proposal of the hand and heart of a naive boy, realizing that you would provide yourself with a well-fed life, but I didn't think about it at all." Meg began to make excuses, looking for the guy's eyes, but he didn't go. How will you pay for the wedding? Father on credit drive. For example, we want a magnificent wedding for our only son, and this pleasure is not cheap because such things are done in our country at the highest level. So how are you going to provide for your half? The woman insisted. I don't know. Meg had tears in her eyes. Probably I know your father, stepfather said dryly. Let him come to us somehow. We will discuss. I'll tell him. Goodbye. And Meg left. The father silently listened to the story of his daughter, and he was tormented by indignation. How can you treat someone's child like that, just because he doesn't have a lot of money? What kind of nasty little people? The man thought, but didn't say anything out loud so as not to upset his daughter even more. Ryan called me and I told him everything. He left home and now lives in a grandfather's apartment. You know, the old mansion near the road. Good guy, said the father. It will be necessary to get to know him. Don't worry about his parents. You have exams on your nose. Meg gradually calmed down, partly because my father recognized Ryan as a good person. Later they had dinner over grilled chicken, watched an old comedy movie, and went to the side. Each of them had his own dream. Jacob was operating on a man without a face in a dream, and Meg was sailing on a ship with her beloved Ryan, and the dog PP was sitting next to him. In the morning, Jacob woke up before the alarm and immediately remembered the pain of his daughter, with whom she shared. The man had no idea how, and most importantly, what he would talk about with those nouveau riches who understand only the power of money. Cattle. Jacob didn't know how to behave like that, as he grew up in an intelligent family, took roots from an old noble family. It was always visible to him. From childhood, little Jacob had tact, good manners, and a kind heart. A gentle character. That is why he was so loved in the class, and then at the university, everyone knew. Jacob Moore will never deceive or set you up. And so Jacob knew perfectly well that sooner or later he would have to meet with these people who consider themselves golden bulls, and that, due to his intelligence, in the end, he would be crushed by boorish pressure and become a laughingstock for them. The fact that the rich also cry, Jacob did not believe for a long time. How right are the people who always say that arrogance is the second happiness? But this, unfortunately, was not about me. Jacob thought as he got ready for work. He was about to leave as the door knocked softly. And then there was a sound like someone threw a bag of potatoes. Jacob opened the door but found no bag behind it. There was something else on the threshold, or rather someone. It was a man, no more than 45 years old. He looked badly pale. A cold sweat broke out on the man's face, probably from pain and weakness. He pressed his hands to his stomach, which was wrapped in a jacket. It was clear that the man was injured. "Help me, doctor," he said quietly. "Waking up and don't need an ambulance." "Is it dangerous?" Without a word, Jacob dragged the man into the house, and with a joint effort, he and Meg laid the wounded man on the sofa in the office. Her father ordered her to boil water, bring clean sheets and gauze, and he himself proceeded to examine the wound. Luckily, it wasn't deep. The knife went near the vital organs and slightly damaged the abdominal muscles. But the man lost a lot of blood, and it was necessary to quickly sew up the damage. After washing and suturing, the surgeon gave the patient an antibiotic and painkiller, after which he quickly fell asleep. It was impossible to leave a stranger, and even in such a situation, it was impossible to leave a single house. So Jacob called work and took all the time off he accumulated from his shift. "Who is this?" Meg asked her father quietly in the kitchen. "I don't know," Jacob replied. "This is the first time I've seen this man. I think he is being followed. I'm glad I had that darning kit. Remember when you hurt your knee? I stitched it up for you in the hospital. Then just in case, he brought needles and threads with scissors, with work in a sterile bag. Look how useful. Oh, how interesting. And what will happen next? Maybe skip uni? I'll let you through," Jacob grumbled. "Go ahead and look Be quiet." "All right," the door promised, burning with curiosity. A few hours later, the stranger woke up and tried to get up, but his attempt was immediately stopped by Jacob. The wounded man did not have a temperature, which made his savior very happy. "How do you feel, sick?" "Just like at work," the owner of the house asked. "It's okay, thanks," the man replied, tasting the offered chicken broth with gusto. "But wouldn't it hurt you to tell us about yourself?" Jacob began seriously. "I need to know who I saved, and then suddenly you are a maniac running from retribution? To begin with, let's go to you. Although we didn't drink at Brotherhood, but still you saved my life. I owe you." "Let's, and you don't owe me anything," the doctor replied. "My name is Michael," the wounded man began his story. "And I was not always like that. 5 years ago I was a big businessman. You won't believe it, but I owned several factories and one large power agency to work in which journalists lined up, and I didn't offend the factory workers with a salary. He always gave bonuses for the holidays and encouraged him for conscientious work. After all, people at the enterprise have bread, and the owner's father taught me to respect bread. So we lived without grief. I, son and wife, and my father, who, in general, was the founder of everything. When the enterprises stood up, he risked everything he had and took the leadership and all the responsibility for himself. Factories began to work, receiving government orders. People rose from their knees. Then he handed over the reins of government to me before teaching all the wisdom. And 5 years ago, when my enterprises received another large state order for one unique development that our young engineer came up with, suddenly the police came for me and arrested me right at the workplace, accusing me of large embezzlement of state money. In a word, they called me a thief. Even earlier, I suspected that my assistant Thomas was dishonest. But when I caught him in bed with my wife, I put the question point blank, or he leaves on his own, or they kick him out under the article. I divorced my wife and went to live with my father. The son was only sorry. He lived in 2 houses, sometimes with me and his grandfather, sometimes with his mother. So it turned out that my wife and her lover set me up very skillfully. They transferred state funds to offshore companies, and they wrote anonymously. When they put me in jail, my father died. Heart could not bear the pain. And these two got married. They didn't even let me hire a lawyer. The wife did not send any messages. Only the son wrote and came on a date. Moreover, when the lovers found out that I was getting out on parole 2 whole years earlier, they sent killers to my cell. They bribed 2 convict scumbags. Yes, but nothing happened to them. Our Godfather did not allow such lawlessness. I left 2 days ago. Apparently, they found out and hired an assassin. As soon as I got off the train, I was stabbed with a knife. I understood what to go to the police or to the hospital to sign my own death warrant. He wrapped his shirt and sweaters around the wound so that blood would not drip. I asked some granny where the travel surgeon lives. She pointed to your house. Well, then you know everything. The wife did not send any messages. Only the son wrote and came on a date. Moreover, when the lovers found out that I was getting out on parole 2 whole years earlier, they sent killers to my cell. They bribed 2 convict scumbags. Yes, but nothing happened to them. Our Godfather did not allow such lawlessness. I left 2 days ago. Apparently, they found out and hired an assassin. As soon as I got off the train, I was stabbed with a knife. I understood what to go to the police or to the hospital to sign my own death warrant. He wrapped his shirt and sweaters around the wound so that blood would not drip. I asked some granny where the travel surgeon lives. She pointed to your house. Well, then you know everything. The wife did not send any messages. Only the son wrote and came on a date. Moreover, when the lovers found out that I was getting out on parole 2 whole years earlier, they sent killers to my cell. They bribed 2 convict scumbags. Yes, but nothing happened to them. Our Godfather did not allow such lawlessness. I left 2 days ago. Apparently, they found out and hired an assassin. As soon as I got off the train, I was stabbed with a knife. I understood what to go to the police or to the hospital to sign my own death warrant. He wrapped his shirt and sweaters around the wound so that blood would not drip. I asked some granny where the travel surgeon lives. She pointed to your house. Well, then you know everything. They bribed 2 convict scumbags. Yes, but nothing happened to them. Our Godfather did not allow such lawlessness. I left 2 days ago. Apparently, they found out and hired an assassin. As soon as I got off the train, I was stabbed with a knife. I understood what to go to the police or to the hospital to sign my own death warrant. He wrapped his shirt and sweaters around the wound so that blood would not drip. I asked some granny where the travel surgeon lives. She pointed to your house. Well, then you know everything. They bribed 2 convict scumbags. Yes, but nothing happened to them. Our Godfather did not allow such lawlessness. I left 2 days ago. Apparently, they found out and hired an assassin. As soon as I got off the train, I was stabbed with a knife. I understood what to go to the police or to the hospital to sign my own death warrant. He wrapped his shirt and sweaters around the wound so that blood would not drip. I asked some granny where the travel surgeon lives. She pointed to your house. Well, then you know everything. Yeah, a story, Jacob said gloomily. You are doing well, but you need to lie down. Get up only to use the toilet. I'll bring you a TV. I'll leave the newspaper book and the broth. Lie down, rest, correct yourself, and don't worry about anything. Michael had his stitches removed 2 weeks later and was doing great. All this time, the former convict lived in Jacob's house. He was a kind, very smart man. Often in the kitchen they argued about something with Meg, solving problems that she was asked at the Roman law competition, when another argument or reasoning between 2 people of different generations was in full swing. Jacob caught himself thinking that he was completely used to Michael and would refuse such a brother. It was evident that not only he, but Meg liked Uncle Michael, as she called him. Ryan tried to visit Meg, but she did not invite him as she was afraid to betray Michael, and therefore introduced her father and fiancé, where it all began at the ice cream parlor. A week later, Ryan's stepfather called and invited Jacob to meet him and his wife. It didn't bode well for Meg's father. The mood was spoiled, but Jacob promised to be. Michael noticed that his friend immersed in gloomy thoughts. He was worried that Jacob was behaving this way because of his long and forced visit as a patient. Listen, Jakey, why are you so sad today? Michael asked. If you are for me, then I can go anywhere. I just can't go back to my father's house now. I'm not chasing you, said Jacob, and it's not about you at all. You and Meg are not a burden, but a joy. In fact, I just don't want to meet the parents of my future son-in-law, Meg's new fiancé. Ryan is a great guy, kind and smart. I'm generally surprised how such a wonderful son could have come from this redneck from the high road. Why don't you want to meet them? Yes, you know, they are rich without breaks. They insulted Meg. Showed her for the wedding. They say, how are we going to pay for it and all that. They see that the girl of a modest family in the mud is not accustomed and cannot fight back all in me. In short, I'm just a soft-bodied. I can only save people and raise my daughter in kindness and affection. Apparently, he made a mistake. It was necessary to educate like an animal, so that progress would go its own way, but over the heads. But no one taught me how to do it. Thank you to your parents. Otherwise, I would already be lying in some kind of hole, if not for you. Can help you than to teach bad, for example. And Michael laughed. Too late. And we have an idea about help, Jacob answered thoughtfully. And then it dawned on him. Michael is practically healthy. Ryan's parents never saw Meg's father. What if we make a small change? I have an idea, Jacob exclaimed. Can you go meet your mom, Daddy boy? Can you take a hit? They rolled them out to the fullest if they climbed into a bottle. You are a seasoned person. Not everyone managed to make their way from a big businessman to a criminal, though not a real one. What do you say? Yes, it's easy, Michael smiled. If only I would dress up. That's scary as hell. You have nothing to take. You have to open your box. I have a bank deposit. Money is insured to the sky. My father also began to put super profits there for a rainy day, and he taught me to do something that would come in handy. Thank you, Dad. Agreed then. Let's go get you dressed. Or what are the rich doing there? Jacob was delighted. The rich want to give gifts to their friends. Otherwise, why do you need a lot of money if you do not use it? No sooner said than done. In the evening, Michael transferred money from the bank to the card, bought a decent suit, shirt, and expensive shoes, not forgetting an elite watch. He cleaned up his appearance and followed Jacob to work in a business-class taxi, but the friend never left the hospital. Then Michael went up to the staff room. His friend was sitting there, and the head physician hung over him. Wrote? Asked the head physician, who clearly forced a subordinate to sign some documents. It was obvious that Jacob was against it. What's going on here? Michael asked sternly. Who are you? The head physician asked politely, seeing a respectable gentleman in front of him. I'm a representative of the intermedia group, Michael said, and with a facial expression, showing a friend to keep quiet. I ask you why my invited guest is late for the meeting. This is an internal matter. Doesn't concern you. How does it not apply? Dr. Jacob Moore is waiting for people who can't be kept waiting. I hope you, as a leader, understand what I mean, Michael said as formally as possible. Okay, you're free. The chief turned to Jacob. We will do without additional duty, and I will make my deputy responsible for accounting for expensive drugs. And the head physician left the office. When the friends were already in the taxi, Michael asked, it would be possible to tell what happened, what he wanted from you. He gave an order which said that I was responsible for all drugs containing drugs instead of him, and even threw a bunch of duty for my sycophants. Did you fill in about some kind of intermedia group there? Jacob asked. I didn't lie at all. This is a network of clinics in Israel and Switzerland, which belonged to me and my father. Well, that is now me. The wife does not know about them and does not have the right to dispose of them. My father transferred this business to me even before he married this viper. So get ready, soon we will open a branch of a private clinic here with the latest equipment. And you will be in charge of it all. How am I? Jacob opened his mouth in surprise. Who else? Where else can I find such an honest director? And in general, I will give you this branch. Will you run your own business? Is that the least I can give you? You actually saved my life and became a friend? Thank you. Well, if you trust me, I will not refuse. The man did not believe his happiness. Meg must be told. Here he will be happy. We forgot about the girl, Michael exclaimed. What kind of shoes did she want? Show me. And I also dropped into a fashion boutique for a dress. Hope you know the size. Certainly. And friends went for gifts for their already common daughter. We did not forget about clothes for the future head of a prestigious clinic. And then they decided to drop by the restaurant to meet Ryan's parents. You're first, said Jacob. Then I'll jump up when you give a sign. I'll say that it was a prank. Here they will be surprised or think that I am a bit of a hello. Okay, I'll go teach a lesson. I'll send you a message when the time comes. Michael left and his friend was left to wait, when it would be possible to appear in all its glory in a suit from the needle and amaze them with his intelligence. After all, he is now the head of an international clinic. Michael, on the other hand, walked up to the waiter with a brisk step and said that they were waiting for him. And he took him to the place. When Michael approached the table, he noticed a familiar face, but thought he was imagining it. However, his vision did not change. At the table, lounging imposingly with arrogant faces, sat his ex-wife and her lover Thomas, who put the objectionable man in jail on a false charge and then twice tried to take his life precisely at those moments when he was most vulnerable. Michael, a well-groomed woman with a dumbfounded face, looked at her ex-husband, who stood in front of her, alive and well. "Mr. Smith, what are you doing here?" Thomas asked, frightened. "What are you doing here?" Michael asked loudly. "How dare you, after everything you did to me and my father, show up in public together? But the scoundrels thought I would die in prison. Assassins were sent. Now get ready for the jail. No lawyer can help you." "Wait," the woman persuaded her ex-husband. "We have a meeting with the saint here. Ryan wants to marry some girl." "So Meg is marrying our Ryan," Michael wondered. "How do you know this girl?" "We were waiting for her dad. Those are still rogue." The ex-wife answered with contempt. "Do not you dare!" Michael roared with rage. "She's the daughter of my friend, and he is the owner of an international medical clinic. And you forgot how you came to my father and me with one suitcase. I was looking for profit. You will now be left with nothing. Again, you will go to the cook and work in cooking." When Jacob saw how Michael was raging, chasing failed relatives out into the street, he hurried to go to the restaurant. There he found a flushed but contented friend. "Well, you're really cool with them," Jacob began. "I got scared. I thought suddenly what would have to be repaired." "This is the least that they will have to go through," answered Michael. "Yes, and Jacob, let's get acquainted on a new one." "What are you? We are familiar." "Not really. I'm the father of Meg's fiancé, Ryan, as it turns out. This is his mother and stepfather. They put me in a colony and wanted to kill me. And for what else they will pay. Because of them, Ryan's grandfather died. In the evening, Meg and Ryan came to Jacob's house. Seeing his father, the boy threw himself into his arms. He thought he would never see his dad again. "I am so glad to see you. How did you get here?" Hugging Michael, asked the son. "Stop. Is Uncle Michael your dad?" The girl was surprised to the depths of her soul. "Yes, and I haven't seen him for 5 years." "Wow, he's been with us for almost a month. If I had known that he was your father, I would have brought you to us earlier." Michael and Jacob told both about the assassination attempt and how Ryan's mother sent his father to prison to take all the money and live happily ever after with her lover. Ryan was outraged. He promised his father that he would help restore justice. And for this it was necessary to get some documents from the safe, proving Michael's non-involvement in the transfer of government money to offshore for a large order. Actually, Thomas did it. The police were just on the wrong track. This is what the guy did when he came to the mansion of his stepfather's mother while they were not at home. When all the evidence of innocence was in Michael's hands, his lawyer filed a statement with law enforcement agencies. The case was reopened. As it turned out, there were a lot of shortcomings and blank spots in it, which Michael's lawyers helped to fill in when the puzzle was formed. Thomas received 15 years in prison for the theft of large funds and attempted murder. 2 weeks later, the men and their children celebrated the return of the honest name of Michael, and with it all the frozen assets returned to him. The ex-wife did not participate in the celebration, although she escaped the wrath of her husband at the request of her son, but she was afraid to appear before his eyes. And Michael didn't invite her. Now the arrogant person has tempered her ardor, having left the mansion for her Odnushka. Her ex-husband gave her a small monthly pension, which would have been more than enough for an ordinary woman. But her mother, out of habit, spent more than she could afford and begged for money from her son, who became vice president of his father's huge empire. Meg, having passed the exams with excellent marks, began to prepare for the wedding, to which Ryan's mother was also invited. The changes affected Jacob's life as well. "I'm resigning. A brilliant surgeon who has ever worked in the ranks of the city hospital. Put the application on the table. Please sign the application. And I encourage you to write your own. Otherwise, the competent authorities will have to be brought up to date. About how you make people work, we don't pay a penny overtime, And, as you can believe, those dark deeds of yours with expensive drugs accountable to me. The boss, not expecting such a rebuff, quickly signed what Jacob gave him. The surgeon went out into the street as a free and self-respecting man. Jacob went straight to his intermediate group clinic, where his own hand-picked staff was waiting for him. Life is getting better, with joy, the man thought and looked around his office. Everything was perfect. A week later, a magnificent wedding of Meg and Ryan took place, to which 200 people were invited. They celebrated in the same restaurant where the arrogant matchmaker fled in disgrace. Before leaving for a honeymoon vacation, the daughter came to her father to say goodbye on the path. "What do you want to bring from the south?" Meg asked. "Bring yourself safe and sound and be careful." Jacob hugged his beloved daughter. "Then sit down." "Uncle Michael pickled 2 barrels of cucumbers," Meg said. "Where are you so many?" "Guess. You're a doctor." Daughter smiled. "Are you pregnant?" asked the father in surprise. "Yes." "You will be a grandfather. And tell the second one, let him not evade changing diapers later." The girl laughed. "Wow, I will have a grandson." Jacob burst into tears of happiness. He also regretted that his wife did not see all this. When Michael found out that he would soon become a grandfather, he almost bought the entire children's store to celebrate. And only the reasonable arguments of the newlyweds stopped him from insane spending. After all, it is still unknown who will be born, a girl or a boy. The next morning, while Jacob was working in his office, a nurse approached him. She was leaving home from duty and decided to report to her boss about the incident last night. "Dr. Moore," she began, "what about the new one?" "What happened, Charlotte?" "Late last night, passers-by brought a woman and insisted on hospitalization. She got sick on the street. Later it turned out that she had gallstones. Now she was put on a drip, although she needed prompt help. She said that she had no money. Cries, breaks out, wants to leave. She says her husband will beat her if she doesn't come back." "Beat, you say, Will." "All right, Charlotte, you can go and rest." "Thank you. I'll deal." When Jacob climbed the stairs to the ward where the patient lay, he decided to help her for free. The surgeon still remembered well those days of lack of money, when the choice was either food or new shoes. Near the window on the bed lay a pretty woman of about 40 years old. Despite the hardships, she retained her liveliness in her eyes and natural beauty. When the patient saw the newcomer, she raised herself on her elbow and looked at him with fear. "Don't worry, I'll be leaving soon. I will pay for all examinations and medical care. Allow me only in parts, please," the woman said quietly. "What is your name?" Jacob asked. "Melanie," she replied. "So, Melanie, no one is kicking you out, and they won't take money from you for treatment. Consider it a charity program. I'm going to do a simple gallbladder operation on you in a couple of hours, so everything will be fine. Rest." "Thank you, Dr. Melanie," thanked him as he left. Jacob smiled. So often he heard these words from the sick. But this time my heart was warm and joyful. The operation went well and smoothly. Melanie was recovering from anesthesia, and therefore a nurse was on duty next to her. Jacob came into the room a couple of times to check on the patient. In the evening, a security guard called from the post said that some homeless person wanted to see the head physician. Jacob went downstairs. A drunken, unpleasant man appeared before his eyes, waving his arms and shouting something at the whole hall. "Are you the boss here?" I asked the alcoholic. "What you need?" "My wife is here. Call Melanie. I came for her. Where is she?" "She recently had surgery." "So she's not going anywhere," the surgeon replied sharply. "Then I'm not going to pay for it." She could not go to a regular hospital to go to the most expensive one. She was brought here by caring people in an unconscious state. "What have you done to your wife? And no one asked you for money. And I'm the boss here, it's up to me to decide. Guards escort this person." And Jacob left. In the evening before going home, he visited Melanie. She was already sitting and reading a book. It was evident that she was an intelligent, kind woman. There was one thing Jacob couldn't understand: how she got in touch with such trash. "How are you doing?" "Great. I am grateful to you for your help. I heard the screams of my husband came." "Yes." "Why do you allow yourself to be treated like this?" "I'm used to it." "Yes, it's a shame to quit. I promised his mother that I would look after him. He does not work, lives at my expense. I'm tired of all this. So end this madhouse. You almost died because of him. I decided to go out of here and get my things. I'll take a room." "That's right. Get well." At home, Jacob remembered Melanie more than once and caught himself thinking that this woman sunk into his soul. But soon she will be discharged, and they will not meet again. He shared his experiences with a friend. He laughed and offered to help as a matchmaker. Crazy. "Yeah, it's kind of awkward. It's inconvenient to put on pants over your head." Michael laughed. "I'll arrange a romantic dinner for you. And here's your address. This apartment is mine. Take the keys and give them to Melanie. I will have already taken my things from the apartment." When Melanie's hospital release date approached, she was happy to know that Jacob would not put her on the streets. By that time, the woman was imbued with warm feelings for her savior. Immediately after being discharged from the clinic, she filed for divorce. And Michael tried with might and main to arrange the personal life of a friend. "I bought a ring for a woman, arranged a candlelight dinner, and here Jacob, with a huge bouquet of flowers, stood on the threshold of Melanie's house. When the woman opened the door, she was surprised and happy at the same time. That evening, both confessed their feelings. Jacob gave Melanie a ring as a token of his love and desire to make her his wife. The very next day, Jacob introduced her to Michael. Finally, he showed you. "Can I go straight to you?" "I think that's the way it is in the family. After all, we are matchmakers," Michael said, smiling. "Of course," Melanie replied. "I usually don't wear rings so as not to draw attention to the birthmark on the back of my hand. But now I don't care what other people think. After all, I'm happy." And the woman showed her hand, on which there was a pink birthmark in the shape of a heart. When Michael saw Melanie's hand, he hooted and his eyes went dark. "Michael, help!" shouted his 3-year-old sister Michael, and a torrent of screams took the girl. And 10-year-old Michael could not cope with the current, holding on to the saving log. Then everyone thought that the baby had drowned. The mother died of grief. All these years, Michael cursed the day when, not in the village, they decided to go to a psychiatric hospital from their parents to ride on their father's boat. Caught in a turbulent stream, he capsized. And what happened. None of them knew that little Brooke had survived. She was washed ashore but found alive by a childless fishing family who adopted the girl, naming her Melanie. They could not get her name. A small child forgot everything from the shock he experienced and did not talk for a long time. And now his own sister was sitting in front of him. "Brooke, you remember me," said the brother. "Look, here I am and you, and Mom and Dad." And Michael showed me an old photograph that he always carried in his purse. Ono recognized the boy in the photo. "Michael?" That evening, a sea of tears was shed and many memories were told. Now Melanie had a big, loving family that would never let anyone hurt her. "What's going on?" Raising a toast at the wedding of Jacob and Melanie, Michael said fervently, "First, I gave him my son as a son-in-law, and now my own sister as a wife. Isn't it too much for you, my dear brother?" The matchmaker, Dr. Jacob Moore, and all the guests laughed. And Jacob himself is the loudest.